Howdy, Dennis Bradford here. Let's think some about being, feeling, and doing better. A fourth myth that keeps emotional distress going is the belief that the common methods for dealing with unwanted emotions work well. They don't, and it's important to understand why. There are two tactics that are often used in an attempt to allay emotional distress. Let's consider each to understand why they fail. One extreme tactic is to try to ignore an emotion. Since it doesn't require doing anything, this seems easy. Furthermore, it can even work for minor flashes of emotions. The problem is that it doesn't work for intense or even mild, persistent emotions. You've likely discovered that for yourself. Let's say that a favorite grandparent died when you were a teenager. The grief really struck you. You then simply tried to ignore it and go about your normal life. It didn't dissolve, did it? You either tried something else or let the poison from that grief continue to seep into your life. Why doesn't ignoring an unwanted emotion work? Simple. It's impossible to be aware of a form while simultaneously trying to ignore it. It can take years, even decades, for intense unwanted emotional distress to fade. Sometimes it only ends with death. Except for those full of self-hatred, nobody really wants that outcome. Life is short enough already. Why spoil it with unnecessary emotional suffering? It's for good reason that you've never heard of even a single psychiatrist or clinical psychologist or similar authority recommending that we ignore powerful negative emotions. Doing that is too dangerous. No loving mother ever raised her children simply to ignore them. The world doesn't change just because we'd like it to be different. Didn't you learn that when you were about 3? Ignoring a negative emotion is as effective as ignoring cancer. Don't ignore parts of your life, even if you don't like them. This tactic is so obviously ineffective that it's not worth more discussion. At the other extreme is venting an emotion, in other words, acting on the basis of it. If, for example, you become very angry with someone, venting might be you're choosing to act in an effort to injure or kill that person. Venting simply doesn't work either. In fact, it usually perpetuates an unwanted emotion. Why? It's because of the psychological law that the more we focus on a form, the more important it becomes. Attention creates value. Authorities understand that venting fails. For example, Paul Ekman writes in Emotions Revealed, if you are, say, angry, venting or, quote, getting your anger out usually makes matters worse, end quote. You've probably tried venting too. It doesn't cause an emotion to dissipate, does it? It's usually quite the opposite. Venting typically perpetuates and often strengthens an emotion. In fact, some athletes use this fact to pump themselves up to play more ferociously. No loving mother ever taught her child to vent unwanted emotions. If you do, you may wind up in prison. What did your mother teach you to do? Are there any other common tactics for dealing with unwanted emotions? Yes, there's one: taking a time out. This is what your mother may have taught you. If you became truly angry after learning that your sister accidentally broke one of your favorite toys and began beating her, your mother should have stopped that venting behavior. Since she also didn't want you simply to ignore what happened, she may have had you take a time out. In the sense that it avoids either venting or ignoring, that's a useful common tactic. Sitting with fear, anger, loneliness, or any other troubling emotion is a good way to go. Sitting with it means focusing on it without venting it. That, in effect, is what both the emotional humility and the peacefulness process methods do. They are like a developed form of having a child take a time out by sitting in a corner. So, taking a time out is a step in the right direction, but it should be further developed in a way previously suggested in this video series. In the next video, let's consider yet another myth that keeps us stuck emotionally. Let's eliminate emotional distress